Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive.
It's great to be here.
Today we're going to be talking all about snorkels.
Ooh, snorkels.
Yeah, it might seem like a pretty simple piece of equipment.
Right, just a tube.
Yeah, just a tube, right?
Yeah.
But there's actually a lot more to it than you might think.
Oh, absolutely. Picking the right snorkel can make a huge difference in your snorkeling experience.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about all the different types of snorkels, the features to look for, and how to choose the perfect one for your needs.
I'm excited to dive in.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with the basics. What are the different types of snorkels out there?
Well, the most basic type is the classic J-tube snorkel.
Okay, the one we all kind of picture, I guess.
Exactly. It's just a simple curved tube, and it's been around forever.
Simple and effective.
Yeah, it is. And it's a good option for experienced snorkelers in calm waters.
Okay, so experienced snorkelers, calm waters, got it.
But if you're new to snorkeling, or if you're going to be in choppy waters, you might want to consider a different type of snorkel. There's the semi-dry snorkel.
Semi-dry, what's that all about?
So a semi-dry snorkel has a splash guard at the top, which helps to prevent water from splashing into the tube.
Oh, that makes sense, especially if it's a little rough out there.
Right. And then there's the dry snorkel.
Okay, dry snorkel, so that one keeps all the water out.
Yeah, it pretty much does. It has a special valve at the top that seals completely when you go underwater.
Wow.
So you don't have to worry about any water getting in.
That sounds pretty amazing, especially if you're a beginner,
Yeah, it can definitely make snorkeling a lot easier and more enjoyable.
Right, less sputtering and coughing and more enjoying the underwater world.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got J-tube, semi-dry, dry. Those are the main types.
Yeah, those are the big three.
Okay, cool. So how do you know which type of snorkel is right for you?
Well, it really depends on a few factors.
Like what?
Your experience level, the conditions you'll be snorkeling in, and your personal preferences.
All right, that makes sense. So let's break those down a little bit more.
Yeah.
What about experience level? How does that factor in?
Well, if you're a beginner, I would definitely recommend a dry snorkel.
Okay.
Just because it's the easiest to use and it'll give you the most peace of mind.
You don't have to think about clearing it. You could just focus on having fun.
Exactly.
Cool. What about if you're a more experienced snorkeler?
Then you have a little more flexibility.
Okay.
You could go with a semi-dry snorkel if you want some protection from splashes. Or you could even go with a classic J-tube if you're comfortable clearing the snorkel yourself.
Got it. All right. So experience level check. What about conditions? What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're snorkeling in calm waters, any type of snorkel will probably work fine.
Right.
But if you're snorkeling in chalky waters or if there's a lot of wave action, you'll definitely want to snorkel with the splash guard.
Okay. So either semi-dry or dry in that case.
Right. And if you're planning on doing any diving, you'll want a snorkel that's specifically designed for diving.
Oh, that's interesting. So there are specific snorkels for scuba diving?
Yeah, they're usually shorter and more compact so they don't get in the way when you're diving.
Okay. Makes sense. And what about personal preferences? How do those come into play?
Well, some people just prefer the simplicity of a classic J-tube snorkel.
Yeah.
While others prefer the added features of a semi-dry or dry snorkel.
Right. It's all about what feels comfortable and what works best for you.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. So we've talked about the different types of snorkels and how to choose the right type. What else is there to consider when choosing a snorkel?
Well, there are a few other features that you might want to think about.
Okay, let's hear it.
Things like the purge valve, the mouthpiece, the material, and the fit.
All right, purge valve, mouthpiece, material, fit. Got it. Lay it on me.
Let's start with the purge valve.
Okay, what's a purge valve?
A purge valve is a one-way valve at the bottom of the snorkel that allows you to easily clear water from the snorkel if it gets in.
Okay, that sounds pretty handy.
It is, especially if you're a beginner or if you're snorkeling in rough conditions.
So it's like a little safety feature.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Okay, cool. What about the mouthpiece? What should we be looking for there?
You want a mouthpiece that's comfortable and fits your mouth well.
Yeah, because you're going to have that in your mouth for a while.
Right. Some mouthpieces are made of silicone, which is soft and flexible.
Okay.
Others are made of rubber, which is more durable but can be a little less comfortable.
Right. You mentioned materials. So what are the different materials that snorkels are made of?
Well, most snorkels are made of plastic or silicone. Plastic snorkels are usually less expensive.
Okay.
But silicone snorkels are more durable and more comfortable to use.
Got it. And what about fit? How do you know if a snorkel fits you properly?
Well, the snorkel should be long enough to reach from your mouth to above the surface of the water.
Right.
And the mouthpiece should fit snugly in your mouth without being too tight.
Okay, so you don't want it to be flopping around.
Right. And you also don't want it to be so tight that it hurts your jaw.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. So purge valve, mouthpiece material fit. Those are all important things to consider.
They are.
All right, so we've talked about the different types of snorkels, the features to look for, and how to choose the right snorkel for your needs. Anything else we should cover before we move on?
I think we've covered the basics.
Okay, great. So let's dive into some specific recommendations then.
Sounds good.
What are some of your favorite snorkels on the market?
Well, I'm not going to mention any specific brands or models,
Of course.
but I can give you some general recommendations based on different needs.
Perfect. Let's do it. All right, so let's start with beginners. What would you recommend for someone who's just getting started with snorkeling?
For beginners, I always recommend a dry snorkel.
Okay, and remind me again why dry snorkels are so good for beginners.
Well, the main reason is that they prevent water from entering the snorkel tube.
Right, so you don't have to worry about clearing it all the time.
Exactly. It takes away a lot of the stress and anxiety that beginners often feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I remember when I first started snorkeling, I was always nervous about getting a mouthful of water.
Yeah, that's a common experience, and dry snorkels eliminate that problem.
Cool. So dry snorkel for beginners. What about for more experienced snorkelers? What would you recommend?
Well, for experienced snorkelers, there are a few more options.
Okay.
You could go with a semi-dry snorkel, which offers some protection from splashes, but still allows you to clear the snorkel easily if you need to.
Okay, so a good middle ground.
Yeah, exactly. Or you could go with a classic J-tube snorkel.
Yeah, the old school one.
Right. But I would only recommend a J-tube snorkel for experienced snorkelers who are comfortable clearing the snorkel themselves.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So beginners dry snorkel, experienced snorkelers, semi-dry, or J-tube.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb.
Cool. What about for scuba divers? Do they need a special kind of snorkel?
They do. Scuba divers need a snorkel that's specifically designed for diving.
Okay, and what's different about a diving snorkel?
Well, diving snorkels are usually shorter and more compact, so they don't get in the way when you're diving.
Right, that makes sense. And are there any other features that are important for diving snorkels?
Yeah, some diving snorkels have a purge valve.
Oh, we talked about those earlier, right?
Right. A purge valve allows you to easily clear water from the snorkel if it gets in.
Andy.
And some diving snorkels also have a flexible lower section.
A flexible lower section, what's that for?
It allows the mouthpiece to drop away from your face when you're not using the snorkel.
Oh, that's smart. So it doesn't get in the way when you're using your regulator.
Exactly.
Cool. So diving snorkel shorter, more compact, purge valve, flexible, lower section. Got it. What about for freedivers? Do they need a special kind of snorkel too?
They do. Freedivers need a snorkel that's streamlined and has minimal drag.
Okay, so like a really simple design.
Yeah, exactly. And they also need a snorkel with a wide bore.
Wide bore, what's that?
The bore is the diameter of the snorkel tube,
Uh-huh.
and a wider bore allows for more airflow.
Okay, which is important for freedivers because they need to be able to take deep breaths.
Right.
Got it. So freedivers, streamlined, minimal drag, wide bore. Okay, cool. So we've talked about snorkel recommendations for beginners, experienced snorkelers, scuba divers, and freedivers.
Yep.
Is there anything else we need to cover before we wrap up this deep dive?
I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, this has been super informative. I feel like I've learned a lot about snorkels today.
Me too. It's been fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for today's deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
It was great having you. Thanks for sharing your expertise.
Anytime. Yeah. And, it's really amazing how something as seemingly simple as a snorkel can have such a big impact on your snorkeling experience.
It really is. It's like anything else. The right gear can make all the difference. So before we wrap up, any final thoughts or advice for our listeners?
I would just say do your research before you buy a snorkel.
Yeah.
Think about the type of snorkeling you'll be doing, the conditions you'll be snorkeling in, and your budget.
Right.
And don't be afraid to ask for help from a dive shop or a snorkeling expert.
Yeah, they can help you find the perfect snorkel for your needs.
Exactly. And most importantly, have fun.
Yes, always have fun. Snorkeling is such an amazing way to experience the underwater world.
It really is.
Hey. Well, that's it for today's deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for sharing your expertise with us.
Anytime, I think.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Kraken Aquatics podcast.